Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Jessup, and we're going to talk about long-term disability insurance claims for plastic surgeons. And Stephen, in this video, I want to provide some tips and guidance for any plastic surgeon that's either applying for long-term disability, is already on claim, or is dealing with a denial. We've represented a lot of plastic surgeons all throughout the country, and very unique issues come up in these claims, especially with lots of surgeons in general. But what's a typical definition of disability that you see in a policy that's been purchased by a plastic surgeon?
You know, it's going to be some variant of an own occupation definition. So the inability to perform the material substantial duties of your occupation, in this case a plastic surgeon.
And why is that such a good definition of disability to have for a plastic surgeon?
Well, you know, it protects you the most because say you stop doing plastic surgery but you transition into some other type of medicine or something else altogether, you could, continue to work and collect your full, disability benefits. So it's just a protection that it affords you to have more options on what could happen in the event that you do have to go on disability.
So when you talk about the term plastic surgeon or the occupation, that's really just a job title, because we've represented well over 100 plastic surgeons, and they all run their practices differently and have subspecialties within plastic surgery and do different things. So how is the disability carrier going to evaluate what that plastic surgeon is doing in order to determine their occupation?
Billing codes. Now, interesting, since a lot of times it's going to be cash, it's not covered by any type of insurance. You may not have the formalized production reports that we may see for, say, an orthopedic surgeon. But they're going to want to see what you're doing production-wise, what your billing is. They may look at calendars, surgical schedules, things like that to really get an idea of how much surgery you're performing, what types, and then the amount of money you're making in relation to it, because that's all going to wrap in this idea of, is it a material and substantial duty?
We've had a fair amount of plastic surgeons who, related to their disability, are unable to do complex surgical procedures, and they basically say, there's things in my practice I may be able to continue doing, but I can't go to the OR or I can't do anything under anesthesia in the office, but there's a lot of other procedures that plastic surgeons are doing. How do you get to a scenario where a plastic surgeon can give up their surgical procedures and still be considered totally disabled?
I've seen it where, like you said, they stop doing the actual surgical component, but then they may go into, just Botox injections, laser treatments, things like it, more cosmetic stuff than actual surgery. And in situations there, we're able to argue that, this is nothing akin to what they were doing prior. This is a whole new occupation. They're not doing any type of plastic surgery. Yes, they may still have the name of their practice and everything out there, but they're not doing those material substantial duties they were prior to the disabling event. So that's one way where a lot of times you still do things, or for instance, if they want to do the consult, but someone else in the practice may do the actual procedure. So it really depends on how you run your practice, what type of practice you have, and what you were doing prior to disability. Because in a situation where you may have already been doing a decent amount of Botox injections or laser, these more cosmetic things, the insurance company may argue, well, that was one of the material and substantial duties, or it was another occupation you had, and therefore, if you stop doing your major surgeries, but you're still doing these minor things, you're then only residually disabled, and we only have to pay you a percentage of loss.
But is there a finite number in that situation? If say these other procedures in the office, like you're talking about, the lasers, were 25% of the income of the practice versus, say, 10% of the income, how do you make that determination where you say, look, I gave up my surgery, what I really did my training for? Because like we were talking, I mean, there's dentists doing Botox, there's cosmetologists, there's nurses doing Botox, there's these laser machines that are very expensive that other people can buy, and you don't need to be a doctor, but plastic surgeons have them in their offices and are making 25-30% of their revenue from that. But the plastic surgeons always say to us, Greg, that was accessory type stuff I was doing. I don't have to be a plastic surgeon to do that. So if that was 25% or more of their duties, can they still be totally disabled?
I think it can be tough. I think it's going to be tough because if it's 25% of income, that's a significant amount. If it was a very small percentage and say the insurance company wanted to say, well, no, it was material and substantial duty, which we would fight them on based on the revenue, we're going to find you residually disabled. If you have a 75% loss of income, generally they're going to pay you 100% of your benefit. Where that can become problematic, and I've seen and I've taken calls from doctors who've been on claim in a situation like that for a decade plus. Well, then they think that they're going to be entitled to their lifetime benefit. So if you have lifetime in your policy, that requires you be totally disabled before a certain age, usually 60, and then through 65 you're totally disabled. Then they'll pay it out. So if you're thinking about filing, it's always a really good idea to get a consultation, a review of the policy, so you understand within your practice where the roadblocks may be with the insurance companies. So getting back to your initial question, can you still be totally disabled if it's up to 25%? Arguably, yes. There's always a way. There's always going to be a scenario. But the more money you make off some accessory type thing you're doing, the harder it is going to be to sell to the insurance company that it wasn't material to your work.
Right, and there's other scenarios where we've came up with where maybe you bring someone else in to run that equipment for you and you still own the business.
Correct.
Along those lines, while plastic surgeons are very specific, people go because you're the doc who's great at what you do, there can be situations where you've built a brand for your name, and if you say, well, this other doctor will do well too, can that plastic surgeon then become more of a business owner, bring in another doctor who does the surgeries, and continue to profit from the business but not do any procedures and still be considered totally disabled?
Yes, you and I, we actually have a client, same situation. I guess you could call what he does, it's at least in the cosmetic realm. Same thing, he got to a point where he can no longer do the procedures. He stopped doing them. He would just do, basic consultations, and he brought other doctors in, but because of his name and his brand, he would sit and watch, to give the people, because they came there for him, but he would watch all the procedures. He would meet with them while they're discussing with the doctor. He was able to collect total disability while still being able to work, do some consultations, but because he removed himself from the surgical component, his insurance companies, he had 3 different ones, have found him totally disabled.
And then along those lines, a lot of doctors don't want to go on disability. They just don't make as much money on disability. So it's very hard for them to give up their career. So more often than not, they want to go on and do something else, whether it's teaching, whether it's selling insurance, whether it's starting a new business or working for an insurance company doing file reviews or consulting for other doctors. Can they still do those things and be totally disabled as well?
Yes. Generally speaking, true own occupations. Every now and then you may see some policies that say you can't perform the duties of your own occupation and you're not working. Right? Other ones are, simply we call a true own occupation. It's just you can't do your own occupation. And I think it's something important to realize too is, we've discussed in other videos, your occupation for purpose of the policy isn't what you were doing when you bought the policy, it's what you were doing at the time of disability. So if all you're doing is these plastic surgery procedures, that's your bread and butter, and you say you go on to say, hey, I'm just going to teaching or some other field, you're not performing your occupation. You can get your full disability benefit while making money in another career.
There's so many options available for plastic surgeons in terms of if you're a particular claimant who has the view that I want to continue to do something else. And we always recommend people to call us. They just have to email us a copy of their policy. We'll provide them with an initial free consultation and let them know right away, here's how you can maximize the policy. And it's important, I know we always ask the claimants, what do you want to get out of this policy? What do you want to do? And we can tell you what you can do and guide you as to how to get there. That's a big part of what we do. Along those lines, a lot of plastic surgeons are concerned about what they can do outside of work, meaning can they continue to coach their kid's soccer game or play golf or play tennis or go to a concert and stand outside for 2 hours. What activities can they continue to do and not be worried that their benefits are going to get cut off?
I mean, generally speaking, pretty much anything. And I think the big thing and the most important thing is just being honest about it. You let your carrier know, hey, I continue to golf, play tennis, I do these things. In a situation where it may be a pain-related problem, like say your neck, back, arms, or whatever, you can't do the surgeries anymore. it's always a patient safety concern, and that's always going to be paramount for the doctor in deciding on the disability. So if you want to go out and do all the things you said, you're only hurting yourself. You're not risking a patient. So generally speaking, yes, you can continue to do those things because there's very few activities of daily living that are probably going to correlate to what you do in an operating room. I mean, I guess short of like you're into rock climbing and you're using grip and you claim that you can't, grip your instruments. But, within reason, you could pretty much do everything you were doing before.
Right, because a lot of doctors still encourage you should work out, walk, a half hour a day, do some kind of exercise 30 minutes to an hour a day. Doesn't equate to the fine motor skills, fixed positions, different things, lifting patients. Patients are unconscious when they're doing the procedures. I know plastic surgeons often have to sit patients up a lot, change positions to see how the patient's going to look. So there's a lot of physical activity and fine motor skills that disability insurance carriers basically ignore when they evaluate the claims. So really, no matter what stage you're at with your claim, if you're a plastic surgeon, we'd love the opportunity to provide you with a free review of your long-term disability insurance policy, whether you're someone who is thinking you may need to file, or you're on claim already and want some assistance with your claim, or obviously if you've been denied, feel free to reach out to Stephen or myself, and we'll let you know immediately how we can assist you. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.